Welcome to this chess video, everyone. I have just crossed my 60 plus Puzzle Rush survival goal. I'm super excited about that. So let's take a look at 5 puzzles that I got correct in this Puzzle Rush. Alright, so this is the first position. I was really impressed by this one because although it's not the most complicated puzzle, it is a really instructional point. Rook endgames are very common. Roughly 1/6 of all chess endgames are some form of rook endgames, so it's definitely a valuable chess endgame to learn very well. Now of course, this rook would be hanging if we could somehow decoy this king away. And so I think the very obvious choice would be this check, but there's also this check to be aware of, and so which of these is the correct way to decoy them away so we can win this rook? Now let's start with the one I think most people would play, which is this move, and unfortunately for them, that is not the solution to this puzzle. There's 2 reasons why. The first line would go like this, where we capture, and then they simply race to the pawn, but the problem is when they get here, they don't go to g7 like I'm sure many people anticipate. You would take the king opposition, and white is going to win this pawn endgame. If you're not sure how to convert from that, you can take a look at this chess video I made on how to convert that situation. But with this move here, they are anticipating us into capturing this pawn, and then they will grab king opposition, and unfortunately for white, this is now a draw. We'll have to shuffle around or eventually capture this pawn, they'll grab the opposition, and we just cannot make progress. We'll move, they'll shadow us, and they'll just keep going back and forth. So what was the second move that I talked about? Because there's a second line here that actually draws for them. If we go back to this check, of course I did mention this was not the solution, but the other problem is not king e7 and then doing what we showed, but rather them playing pawn to e4. And if you had seen this, you also would have realized that this is unfortunately a draw. We cannot let that pawn get all the way down to promoting. And so when we capture, we're coming backwards, they'll grab king opposition, and we can't even go towards this pawn because of the direction that they're attacking. So returning to the original position, it is actually this check that is the winner. Of course, if they drop back to any of these squares, we'll grab their rook, and in the case of their king being here on c7, they'll grab ours, but we'll take here, and we have plenty of time to work our way towards this pawn, and our g-pawn will win. So the real critical line is king to c5, but now rook to b5 check, and after any king move, we'll capture here, and eventually win these pawns. I'll blitz out a quick sample line here, it might go something like this. And you can see here that there's no way they're going to stop us from getting a queen. Alright, now let's take a look at the second puzzle. Here material is equal, and our king looks to be a bit vulnerable. But as we'll soon find out, it is actually the black king that is more vulnerable, because here they have backrank problems. It looks a bit scary on our king, because it seems as if maybe they have this check that could be kind of strong. Rook to b2 or a2 looks like potential threats, but we see that rook b2 is covered by their queen, so rook a2 is the move. And that actually ended the puzzle. Just to show for illustrative purposes, if they had gone here, we just sacrificed the queen, and they can't take back because this will be the checkmate. This next one was also another straightforward puzzle, but I really like the idea of this, because here black's threat was this move and coming here, and this looks like a threat we have to deal with, until you realize that that plan is actually too slow, and we do not have to worry about it. We are actually threatening checkmate. We simply play king to g6, and the key move to see here was this check being blocked by our bishop. Of course, this just gives away the rook and really changes nothing, and so now our threat is simply this move, with these squares controlled, and that'll be a checkmate. The best defense they had was this move, but after capturing it really doesn't change anything. But what's clever about that is if they try and go here, now trying to prevent checkmate that way, it unlocks the new checkmate on this file. Alright, the puzzle's getting much tougher now. This one might be my favorite of the entire batch. It was just calculation that was required for this, and I really appreciated this exercise. Some of the other puzzles are just extremely difficult. This one I can almost guarantee I would have failed if I had tried this months ago, but after practicing my calculation a little bit, this was really reaffirming that I am on the right track and improving my chess. Now of course their pawn is very close to promoting, and if we wait too long, their pawn is going to support this. That'll free up their rook to attack, and they also have this threat to kick away our rook. So it really becomes a game of counting. Can our pawn promote before their pawn gets to here or here? And so what you had to look at was pawn to c3 to block the check, but also further our pawn to get closer promoting. They continue this move. We get out of the pin, and we just do the exact same thing. And now here comes the critical moment. If we were to play the king to b1, this would lose because they play this check, and if we promote, they sacrifice take back, But now this pawn is anchored this, and it's the classic case of 2 connected pawns on the 7th rank, being stronger than an entire rook. We take, they promote, and we're actually losing. So going back here, the idea is not king to b1, it is to sacrifice our rook first before this pawn gets to defend theirs. The only real testing try is rook captures g7, but now we become a queen. And note they don't even have this move because we'll take the pawn with check and then win their rook. And now this is the hardest puzzle by rating that I correctly solved in this puzzle rush. Now it looks like we're under massive pressure here. Their last move is this, and they have so many pieces near our king, it really looks scary. Not to mention, black is actually up 3 points of material. Our king doesn't really have a safe place to try and escape to, and so it really becomes a matter of can we checkmate the opponent before they get to us. We have to play very forcing moves, and with best play, it is actually a forced checkmate in 8 moves. Now, I didn't bother to count all 8, but I knew for sure I had to start off with checks, and continue calculating until I saw a checkmate. Now, the first thing to notice is any move by the bishop is going to be discovered check, and so I think the first thing people will have to look at, and definitely what I looked at first, was can we capture this knight? Unfortunately, the answer is no, because they go to the f-file, and we don't have this follow-up because it is guarded by their bishop. And there's really no other good checks. The attack just ends that quickly. Remember, there's a huge attack against our king, and we are down material. Now we've equalized by taking their knight, but it is not enough. So then I find bishop to d6 check. Note they cannot go to the d file. They go to either of those squares. It'll end in checkmate very quickly by this pattern. And our calculation is made even easier because they cannot go to this square, so they are forced to go to f7. Now we play queen e7 check, and we see the value of having the bishop exactly on the square. We didn't have queen to e7 available before, but now our bishop is actually acting as interference. The king is forced to the g file. They don't want to go to g8, because this would walk into checkmate in 1, so they have to try and stay close to their pawn. But I am looking for checks, because if we let up the attack, they're going to crash through against our king. Probably starting with bishop captures d2 check, and they're not going to let up the checks until we are checkmated. So the only reasonable move forward is to sacrifice the rook! Yeah, I'm not going to try that Levy impression again. We follow up with the check. They are forced here. If they go to king f5 instead, this is checkmate. Really good display of the bishops and the queen controlling the rest. So that's why here I pretty much thought they were forced. But once again, we have to follow up with checks. It is not enough to play here and hope for checkmate, because once again, they'll play bishop captures d2 check, or other moves like a check on e8. So I found queen to f7 check, and this is where the puzzle ended. What I saw was that if they went here, this is an immediate checkmate, and if they go to g5, this is a really pretty pattern. You can sacrifice the bishop, they capture back, and then this will be checkmate. There's different variations on that, but the main point in all of them is the queen controls this, your pawn is defended by your queen, and the pawn controls these last 2 squares while they are in check. I don't know if that pattern is something I've seen before, or if I hadn't really noted it until after seeing this puzzle. This milestone was very exciting for me. I think what really got me the most excited was how quickly I actually completed this. Most Puzzle Rush survival attempts usually took me at least 3 hours. I'd be doing pretty well on the first 30 puzzles, pretty quickly breezing through them, then I'd take a little bit longer on the rest, and then I would get stumped on at least 1 or 2 puzzles, and those would take me 20 minutes or more, sometimes even up to an hour. But with this one, I just really felt in the flow, and you can see my average time for each puzzle was about 1.5 minutes. I breezed through the first few in a second or 2, but even the second half, having about an average of 3 minutes and then having it balance out, felt extremely quickly. I just simply did not get stumped on any of the puzzles until after I had already crossed my goal of 60. I ended up getting 62, very excited with that. Let me know what your Puzzle Rush survival record is. I'm really curious to hear. And if you want to see all the puzzles I did when I crossed 50, you can take a look at this video. Or if you want to see me celebrating the 3,000 puzzles rating milestone, you can take a look at this other video. Thanks for stopping by, everyone. I'll see you in the next one.